Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Coulter. Welcome to Meant to Pause, the Menopause series. We're coming to you from the beautiful House of Owl in Victoria, British Columbia. And we're so glad you could join us today on our final episode of Meant to Pause. And I think I saved the best for the last. Paula, I'm just so glad you're here with us today because I've been looking for your wisdom this has been, I think, close to an 8-month journey for us. It's been fantastic. We have met so many wonderful knowledge holders, experts, passionate people that are committed to sharing their experiences and their wisdom and their knowledge about menopause in general, but also about their own experiences. And I know that what you have to talk to us about today is very special, and I'm so glad we met. I know that we're going to be friends down the road. Like, this is just the beginning. So I'm just super happy that you're here, and I want you, for our guests, maybe to just tell us a little bit about yourself today.
Well, thank you so much for having me today and for allowing me to share my knowledge and my teachings. I'm so grateful. My name is Paula Estrella Salinas. My spirit name is Wiawamnizi, which means Yellow Eagle Woman. I'm an Indigenous woman from Chile. I came to Canada when I was 4 after the fascist military coup and for political reasons.
Oh, wow.
So my family was exiled to Winnipeg, Manitoba. I spent 20 years in Winnipeg. Been on the island for over 20 years, and I also spent 8 years on Carry the Kettle First Nations, where I gathered a lot of teachings there from the matriarchs of the community and my Sundance sisters and, my Tioshpai, my family, Sundance family, which is what Tioshpai means. So I'm really grateful to have had that experience and to continue that within my own family and to unlearn the things that I learned as a child from my mother. Not necessarily learned, but just things that weren't talked about. So I'm really grateful to be on this journey because it's a change of life. When we go into menopause, it's a completely different world. But if you navigate through it in a good way, good things happen. You meet good people.
You do.
Yeah.
And I think that is part of the mission of this podcast, is to give people that sense of like, this is a hopeful journey for I believe all of us, but I know that we are taught different things by society in general, by our families, by our cultures. And so I know that your heritage and your life experience has taught you many different things that I myself have not been exposed to at all. We're both reading this great book right now, Becoming a Matriarch. I just find the timing of it so interesting that I'm 61. Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 53. I'll be 54 in January.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're at this stage, right?
That's right. My friend, she's one of my Sundance sisters, gifted me that book just before I came back to Victoria. Becoming a Matriarch is exactly where
it's a responsibility.
It is a huge responsibility, whether you're an aunt, a sister, a grandmother, a mother. It's our responsibility to pass those teachings on. But because of the history, the residential school, all those things that have happened in our society, that's been taken away. Those teachings have kind of almost like stopped, but they're still out there and they're coming back.
They are coming back. Can you tell me about what some of those teachings how they're coming back? Can we Can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So for me, when I was a young girl, what I saw in my mom was that she was almost this subservient person, and even as far as the moontime teachings, I didn't get any. But until I started following this way of life, like this, we call it the walking the red road, the Chankaluta way of
Oh,
life. The women, they're so powerful. They're the life givers.
ooh, I like that.
Yeah, we're all connected. We're all related in some way or another. But those teachings, those moontime teachings, they carry such a huge responsibility, because even being around ceremony, if you're on your moontime, you're so powerful that you can throw that off. That energy will take away from that sacredness. And it's hard to understand and wrap your head around it, because it's a way of life. And it's that's how strong women are when they're on their moontime. Now, when we go through those life changes, that changes, because now you become that person, that matriarch that has that responsibility, the elder responsibility to pass those teachings on. So when I was growing up, I didn't see that. I didn't see my mom as that matriarch, even though she was, she had to do a lot just to get my dad. My dad was, like I said, political prisoner. So she was the one that had to go out in the community and he was disappeared for a couple weeks, and find a way and resources to get the paperwork done so that we were exiled. Like that's a whole,
Wow.
other story. But growing up, I didn't see that. It wasn't until way later that I saw how strong my mother actually was.
I was going to say,
because
like,
that's
yeah.
huge. Like in the middle of a crisis in Chile, there's people being tortured and all this stuff is going on. It was very political. And then here's my mom, this housewife, because that was her role, having to do all this stuff because my dad was in prison for 2 years for political reasons.
Right.
So I didn't really put two and two together, but my mom had so much to do, and she had 4 kids back at home, and she's trying to, from Cartagena go to Santiago to do all this paperwork, and she had to travel by train, and she had a newborn at the time, my brother.
Right.
So doing all these things just on her own is, it was really tough. When that time came for those teachings to be passed on, like the moontime teachings, my mom just did not have that connection with me to do so.
Was it because of the situation that you all were in your life? Like
I think
there wasn't that time to nourish.
Definitely the trauma, whatever trauma she had been through, because that was a lot. I can't even imagine. Now that I understand as an adult, I understand that a little bit more. I realized that, yeah, she was so disconnected, and whatever trauma she was carrying, there was no way she would have had time to, like you said, nurture that
Yeah.
part of, such an important piece for a woman is to have those teachings. So yeah, that important part of life when you should have those teachings. I was 11. I wanted to make sure for my children, for my girls, I have 3 daughters and I have 3 granddaughters.
Wow.
I wanted to make sure
I love
that
it.
they have those teachings, that they will get those teachings. And that's my responsibility now as a grandmother and as a mother.
As a matriarch, right?
As a matriarch,
Yeah.
becoming a matriarch, that's my role. I feel that that's my role in today's day and age. Whereas maybe if I was in Chile, I would have been, there's so much ageism.
Is there? Yeah.
It's horrible. The Chileans are the worst.
Less so than here in Canada? I mean, we have ageism too.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's pretty, yeah.
No, okay.
It's so different. It's so backwards. But if you go into the communities, the elders, if you go into the indigenous communities, it's not like that.
Well, I find that the same here too,
Yes,
right?
I find that too. And that's where I started to learn my teachings, my path just opened up as far as learning who I was and how powerful, not that I have a power, but how important my role as a woman,
Yeah.
and as a teacher. The term life giver, I had no idea how valuable the moon time, when you're on your moon time. I understood that connection when I went to my very first Sundance. I couldn't be at that Sundance because I ended up getting my moon time. But the prayers were just as powerful. And the balance, the balance of man and woman, well, there would be no balance if there was no woman. There would be no balance if there was no man. It's we kind of make that happen. And as Sundance, we also, the women come in behind the men, not because they're less of, but because they're so powerful. They lift the man up when they're dancing out there for 4 days and they're fasting. That they bring that balance. That important piece that I had no understanding about myself, that how important my role as a woman was. And now going through these life changes, it has helped me understand, if I don't learn and if I don't hang on to these teachings, that they pretty much died out, but they haven't died out, but they were taken. These teachings were taken because we weren't allowed to talk about certain things.
And to be honest with you, Paula, that is why the format that we're doing this in, the podcast, I'm a big believer in, like, community number one, right? So we started doing the menopause gatherings as a way to bring people together, right? Who are preparing for, experiencing, or who have conquered menopause. So that was the beginnings of what we're doing. And now, with the generosity of TELUS and StoryHive, we've been able to produce this series, and our goal is to, share the knowledge on a bigger platform and in community, right? That people like yourself have. If there was something that you could share with us today that you have learned through your life and your experiences that we may not have been exposed to or will ever be exposed to, what would some of those things be? I mean, when you're talking about the moon cycle, like that, to me, I mean, I know about the moon cycle, but I don't know about any teachings around it necessarily.
I think the big one would be, the sacredness of the woman, of the life giver.
Right.
And so there's different medicines as well.
Okay.
There's specific medicines, healing medicines.
Okay.
Traditional medicinal medicines that, from what I was taught, what had been shared with me was that there were specific elders in the community that were given these teachings through a dream and vision. So they were handpicked, and that dream and vision, they would go out and find these medicines that they were given in this dream and vision.
Your messages will come through to you through your dreams, which I think, that's a universal.
So, and that piece, that was, a lot of people will claim to be a medicine man or a medicine woman, but these are specific to your dream and vision. So that person would go and find these medicines and have, and use them to heal other people.
Okay.
Mapuche people in Chile, or indigenous people. My great grandmother was a Machi medicine woman, and my dad shared some stories from, just stories he had.
Yeah.
He's always shared very little, so the little bits and pieces are, little bits and pieces that I have. But these teachings, these medicinal teachings, it's not something that you would sell on the, you can't buy these medicines, you can't Google them. They're just specific to that tribe or to those people, and they share them within the community to help heal, whether you have aches and pains, things like that. It's something that's sacred. It's not really talked about, but those things, even the way you go and pick medicine, I've
heard this.
Yeah, you have to, you leave an offering for Grandmother Earth, and you take only what you ever will use. You don't overpick. You just take enough for what you're going to use. And those are teachings that have been shared that I've learned along the way. It's interesting because I'm from South America. I'm from the furthest south that you can imagine. And I came up to Canada, the furthest north here on Turtle Island, where some of the teachings, they're not the same, but they're very similar. And the matriarch, the women, like in our ceremonies down south, it's the women, the elder, the woman of the community, the elder woman that is the one that will have the ceremony and have that gift to, to share those teachings or that healing gift. And here it's usually the man, and I know on the West Coast it's the men that have that gift to.
Is that right?
So it's a little
See,
different.
I didn't know that either.
It's different for every tribe, if you will. It's different for every nation.
Yeah.
Everyone has, like the West Coast, they have their own ceremonies and
Right.
traditions that are completely different than where I learned mine. Mine are Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, more
Right.
like the Sioux ceremonies, the Sundance ceremonies. Those are their teachings.
I guess it's probably more of a reflection of the environment also, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ceremony would be, I feel like we've lost, I don't have much connection to our old traditions at all.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, back in the day, they had their own teachings and they had their own medicines, and it was usually the women. The women have always been the backbone of every Indigenous community.
I totally believe that.
And along the way, everything's been so westernized and compact into a pill or
westernized and
quick
industrialized.
Yes.
So it was interesting when you were talking about earlier about, harvesting the medicine. Food is medicine, right?
Food is medicine, 100%.
And we have gone so far away from growing our own food. Just this whole industrialization of our food, it's very, very concerning, but we're learning now that it's also something that we need to step back from. Where are you right now in your menopause journey?
For me, I have the occasional hot flash.
Okay.
It hasn't been horrendous for me.
Okay.
I can honestly say, because I've heard horror stories, and I have, when we're in the arbor or back home, when we're talking with our Sundance sisters, I always go back to them because they have so many teachings that over the last 20, 30 years that they also have come back to their old way of life, their way of life that was potentially hidden or lost.
Yeah.
And, some of the horror stories that you can go through when you're in menopause, you're crazy, just your whole life disrupts. And you can have
it can be that way. Yeah.
It can be that way, but it's that change of life where you just, I don't know, you have to embrace it. I feel like, okay, if I'm going to have a hot flash, I'm going to exercise more so that I won't be able to tell if I'm having a hot flash. I'll be sweating it out anyway. Or, just keeping active and keeping myself sane. Whatever I can do for myself to keep myself from going through that whole process of menopause, because it is life-changing. And for some women, you don't want to face you don't want to face it sometimes, but it's a beautiful time.
I think it is a beautiful
it's a different
time.
Stage.
I mean, I joke about it a lot because I think humor.
Because you have to.
Because humor is good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I sent you an article, the Atlantic article, about the grandmother effect, about there is a belief that is how humans were able to thrive, was because whales and women, that was it. We were the only mammals that experienced menopause. And the same thing that happens with whales was happening with humans. And that was that the elder whales would then become the leader of the pod. And this is what was happening with humans also. And that's what allowed humans to then flourish, because even though the younger women who were still in their reproductive years were still having babies, they had the matriarchs who were then able to take care of the growing children. In your experience, do you see that? And I love the whole auntie culture in the Indigenous.
Deadly aunties.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I am also an auntie, and I'm like, I just want that to me is just such a fun role. So do you want to talk about what you've experienced with your elder women in your community, including the aunties and your grandmother? Maybe.
100%. I grew up here in Canada, so I didn't have the luxury of having my grandmother. We left. It was just immediate family. We were exiled, and because my father was political, we were forced to leave. So I didn't have that growing up. Now, being in the community, being a big part of the Indigenous community, my husband is First Nations, and I grew up understanding, or began to understand and see a different role for myself and within the community, and how valuable the elder is.
Yes.
Because they carry all the knowledge, they carry all the teachings, the stories, the language. The language is such a huge part. I worked for an organization back in Saskatchewan and Regina called Prairie Spirit Connections, and they have a grandmother's group. They have a Mending the Family program. They have a women's program, a youth program. I facilitated the youth group and the women's program, but the grandmother's group was so special because they would actually go and have a session like the Mending the Family, were people that had their kids in care, they were struggling with addictions and trying to get their life back on track. So the role that the grandmothers would play in their healing journey was so impactful to their healing, because they shared their teachings, their laughter, traditional things, traditional talks, traditional medicines,
which would be very comforting, I would think.
100%.
Yeah.
Even just sitting around, if we had a cultural camp or we'd go and have a sweat lodge, just sitting around and the laughter and just having that, how can you say, that unity, even though that's not your grandmother, but you will look to that person as a grandmother, and you will call them grandmother, or auntie. It's so big. I'm auntie to so many young kids. And I love it. It's such it just helps because there's so much trauma. There's so much trauma from the effects of the residential school, and the role that the grandmother plays, even in today's day and age. I heard you speaking earlier about how the grandmothers are in today's day and age raising, there's so many people that are struggling with mental health and addictions, and the grandmothers are still trying to keep it together for these children, that if we don't have that, it's devastating, the effects of everything that we're going through in today's day and age as far as that.
Yeah, and I want to say it's not just, grandfathers play a role too.
Oh, huge, yeah. But the grandmothers being the matriarch, the ones that have that gift of love and laughter and light and unity and just that strength. It's different.
It is different, and I think we should acknowledge that and say, yes, it is different. And a lot of times people don't want to talk about that, and I'm like, I have an expression and I kind of live by it. I've been doing gatherings with women for almost a decade now, and there is something magical that happens when women gather. Something changes. The energy is...
It's that energy.
The energy is different.
It's that energy that they have, that loving, caring, nurturing.
Yeah.
I know that for myself growing up, I grew up in the 70s, 80s. I'm 53.
Yeah.
And, growing up, it was different in the Chilean community. They're so backwards at the best of times. They're so influenced in a different way, but not everyone. But in the Indigenous communities, it's always the respect for the elders. But I heard things, from just your average Latino, how the respect wasn't there, the value for the grandmothers. The term vieja, getting old, that old lady. And it's not, the old lady syndrome.
Well, we have that too, like, the whole notion of the crone, right? And I'm like, I have always been in love with older women. Like, to me, older women are the most
such a beauty,
incredibly beautiful creatures. Like, they're just, I'm in awe of that. And I understand how growing older is, you get less respect or whatever.
Well, there's a stigma out there.
But I'm like, you guys don't know what you're missing out on here, right?
I agree.
This is the richest part of a woman's life, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that, all stages of a woman's life can't be rich, but I think we really get, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, we get very powerful as we get older in different ways. There's power when you're young, there's power when you're in your midlife, But when you get older, you tend to roar a bit. You do not care nearly as much about this or
It's
that.
what's in here
It's
and
what's
what's up here
inside,
that
yeah.
really matters at the end of the day. And I feel that that's one thing I've learned being in the Indigenous community, is that when you're referred to as an elder, that's the highest respect you can get. But not everyone's an elder, because there's people that they're older
Okay.
people. They don't carry the same teachings.
Oh.
They don't have that. There's always good and bad.
Yes.
So, and you're always learning and growing as a person.
Yeah.
So for me, that's something that I've learned. If I catch myself, if I'm being negative, or, I have to look inside and see, okay, what am I doing to create this?
Yeah.
I need to fix that within myself. And that's how you become that person as you get older. You're always living and growing and doing new things. You're never too old.
Well, one would
And I've
hope,
learned that.
right?
Yeah, one would hope. And I work, like I said, I work with seniors sometimes, and I see that too. It's like,
well, you're working right now. You're working.
I'm a mental health and addiction recovery worker, but I also pick up on the seniors side of things, seniors mental health.
Okay.
And I love it. I absolutely love it. So
Well,
I go there a few times.
That is a very nurturing place to be. I also work in healthcare, and I find it very rewarding. It's not. It's
100%.
I'm not a healthcare professional. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. I think that our role, I'm talking about you and I specifically, when we're here together talking about our different experiences, we found a common ground, be it menopause or, taking care of ourselves as we grow older or becoming a matriarch. It's really important that women continue to connect with each other.
Absolutely.
To gather, when you talk about your moon circles and things like that. Like, this is something that I think is going to become more so and even more necessary.
It's so important. I think it's so important. I think the root cause of mental health is being isolated and not having that human connection. As humans, we are meant to connect and support one another. And the importance of being the auntie, being the mother, the stepmother, the grandmother, however that may be, it's so important. It's so important. And if we don't have that connection, we're screwed. Like, we're going to fall apart. And I feel like a lot of people that are in their sadness, or when you're going through menopause, you isolate. People tend to isolate when you're down. It's
well, we're trying to change that, Paula.
And talking about it, I feel like
talking about it is
so amazing.
And I think I want to, on that note, to continue having these conversations. Can I invite you back, and we're going to talk some, and maybe bring an auntie or a grandmother, another.
I would love to.
Yeah.
There's so
Can
many
we do
women
that?
in the community that I've worked with. Definitely. Thank you for having me today. I feel good about sharing these things, and grateful.
I'm grateful too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula. And thank you, everyone. This is, I guess, a bittersweet goodbye, but we're hoping to see you guys again down the road, and take care of yourselves. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Coulter, and I'm your host and creator of Meant to Pause, the Menopause series. We've just wrapped up season 1, but we've only just begun.
And that's the worst advice you can give to a woman who is in hormonal change.
Interesting.
So we really need to have a whole mindset shift.
We focus on what needs to get done, what do we have the capacity to do, how do we get it done? Because we're always busy. We have so many things to do.
Tell me a little bit about hydration, because I love my water.
Yeah.
I'm a water head.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And so what we typically say, because every body is different, is it's your weight in pounds divided by 2, and that's the number of ounces you should take.
Oh,
Yeah.
See? Did
Yep.
not know.
Yep.
You know, when I started off seeing a lot of these patients, they put their trust in me, and I was able to, you know, really focus in on that and help these wonderful women get through or transition and enjoy the process. And now that, again, that I'm experiencing it, it's bringing even more value, I think, to my practice.
That's the first time I've ever heard you talk about the potential to enjoy process.
There is a role for us to be sure that we're seeding the microphone or seeding the spaces and
I
and doing
think
that.
that's something I've really taken away from this conversation.
It's knowledge sharing. It's women sitting with each other and being
I'm
different
a big
ages, right?
believer in that.
Yeah.
A big believer
I think
in that.
that's so huge.
We want to thank the incredible team at StoryHive for their support of Meant to Pause and truly believe this project should continue to examine the expansive amount of information and experience surrounding the menopause journey.